All right, so here you can see exactly what I'm teaching you how to do today. It's gonna be a very simple street drawing, but it's gonna teach you everything you need to know about how to draw any exterior scene in one-point perspective in a very simple sense. And just to let you know exactly what I'm working with, you can see right here, nothing special. Just gonna have a nice big ruler, a T-square, a smaller ruler, and a pencil and eraser. Let's go. So the first thing we need to do is we need to establish where is our vanishing point. So to do this, I'm gonna use my nice big ruler for this one. Make sure that your ruler actually stretches all the way from corner to corner. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna make an X. And remember that what we wanna do is we wanna make sure that we, make sure that we make really light marks. And then B, we also wanna make sure that this is gonna perfectly align to each center. And then also make sure that you're holding your pencil perfectly straight as you're doing this so that you are going to get an actually straight line. And now remember, right where these lines converge here, this is gonna be your vanishing point. At this point, we do not need these, so let's erase those. All right, so now what we wanna do is we're gonna be making a simple street scene. So I'm gonna be putting some buildings on the left and on the right. So what we wanna do first off is define where do they start and where do they stop. So join me in doing this. We're gonna go ahead and take our regular ruler and we're gonna create some simple orthogonal lines that connect to our vanishing point. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it right about here in the corner, and I'm gonna match that up to my vanishing point. We're gonna do it on one side, and then we'll do it again to the other. Now we wanna mirror this on the other side a bit. So what I'm gonna do is take my T-square, and whenever you wanna make something mirrored, use your T-square, it's gonna work best for it. And I'm gonna make a little mark right here on the other side. So that's gonna be my simple guideline for how I'm gonna create this and have this look like both sides of the street start at the exact same spot. Now for this one, I have to kind of eyeball this one, but it'll be about the same. Just look at how far in do we go here and how far in do we go over here. Okay, so here you can see we've got one building, we've got another set of buildings up over here. Now let's detail them out. One of the first things you want to do whenever you're going to do any type of street view is you want to find out where do the buildings start and stop. So I'm going to have these ones in the front being the biggest ones. They're going to get cut off wherever they start, but then I also want to define where are the ones behind that too. So what we want to do now is go ahead and take our T-square and we want to draw some vertical lines in between these orthogonal lines. And I also want to show where does this end as well. So here you can see two buildings. This part in the middle, I don't need, except we're going to keep the vanishing point. Here's one thing that you're probably going to pick up on. It's just the fact that like this just looks like it's just one 3D box going this way and one 3D box going that way. Now, naturally, buildings are gonna have a little bit of a space in between. There might be a little bit of an alleyway in between these. So that's why I wanna go ahead and I wanna define right now. So using my T-square, we're gonna go ahead and create a little bit of an alleyway in between these. So I wanna create this one on the left right here. We're gonna do this one first. And then we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. It's okay if they are not going to be the same. If one's bigger than the other, it makes sense. Now, here's what we wanna think about. If this is an alleyway, it's gonna go back. So how do we go back? Anything that is not a diagonal line has to be a horizontal or vertical line perfectly straight. So let's use our T-square now, and let's go ahead and let's make one at the top, again going from this vertical line back to the other vertical line. We're gonna do the same thing right here. We're gonna go here, back, and then we're gonna go over here and do the same thing here, back, and here. So now we don't need any of these little orthogonal line marks. So let's go ahead and erase those. So to detail these out, y'all, here's what we want to know. Two simple questions. Does something come out of it or does something go into it? We're going to demonstrate each one of these components and then mix them. We're going to go one side to the next. Let's start over here on the right. So right above the horizon line, which again would be simulated right here, right where the vanishing point is, let's go ahead and let's make some orthogonal lines with me. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna have this part come out right here. That's gonna be an orthogonal line. And I'm gonna have another one that sits right about here, still again above the horizon line. Now let's go ahead and end that shape. Let's go ahead, let's put that right here. So we don't need this little area right here. We can erase that piece right there, okay? So whenever you have something that bumps out and it's either above the horizon line or below the horizon line, not at the horizon line. We need to show that. So go ahead and take your T-square, and what you want to do is start at this furthest edge and draw it until it meets the original. So like right here where it met that vertical line. We got that. Now let's go ahead and draw an orthogonal line that joins this corner right here with the vanishing point. Now we've got that going right there, okay? We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna do the same thing right here as well, again, creating another bump out. Now you'll notice how this shape cuts into this, but remember, this is in front of that, so it's gonna go behind it. It's gonna tuck in a little bit. So here, all we have to do is create one, boom, little horizontal line. And then we can erase the rest of this right here. Now, just like we did here, we have to show the under part of this as well because we are above the horizon line. Remember, anything above the horizon line, we're going to see the bottom of it. If it is below the horizon line, we're gonna see the top of it. Now, when we do that, we're gonna go ahead and bring it just to the edge of the original building, because if this comes over all the way, it's also gonna go this way. And that's how we're gonna make that look three-dimensional. Next, let's go over how to recess something in so that it's gonna look like there is a part of the building that just boom, juts in. So this is jutting out, this is jutting in. So right here, I'm gonna go ahead and create a recess, and then we're gonna create one right here. How do we do this? Well, y'all, everything in perspective always starts out with a box. So to start off any type of a recess, what you wanna do is you wanna create the plane it's gonna exist on. Now, where this is gonna start is important because you wanna remember, if this is the horizon line, this is naturally where somebody's, head would be. So I wanna go ahead and any type of a recess, I wanna make it human scaled. So I'm gonna go ahead and start that a little bit above it because it makes the most sense. And now we're gonna use our T-square and pull that line, boom, straight down. Okay, now, this is the basis for it. Now what I wanna do, I wanna make it, and I wanna show the depth on here because everything in perspective is all about depth. So go ahead and take your T-square at this point, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw a couple horizontal lines. Starting at this interior edge right here, we're gonna go in, and we're gonna do the same thing, same distance and everything, right here, boom. So this is again showing like, hey, how far in does that wall go right there? And then we wanna go ahead, use our T-square and pull that vertical line straight up. Again, we're above the horizon line right here, so what do we see? We're gonna see the bottom of that one right there. Make sure when you do this that you're aligning this corner with the vanishing point here, everybody. Last step up on here, you might be like, well, what happens down here? It can't just go back into the void. You're right. Here again, we're below the horizon line, so we need to see an orthogonal line to show that. So right here at this corner, boom, right there. Logically, if this part's going in, we don't need this part, erase that. That's kind of a little bump in right there. You want to imagine there be a door somewhere up over here, and that just shows the depth. Now, let's go ahead and let's apply that again right here. We have the basic opening, boom. Now, let's go ahead, let's pull how far back that goes. Now, quick little thing, this is closer to us, so this is gonna be less than what we're gonna see here. We're gonna see a lot more depth here. All right, so let's go ahead and grab our corner here, pull that in, and again, same distance from this corner of that box that we just drew in perspective. So now, let's go ahead and let's draw that vertical line straight up. Next, draw this vertical line straight up. Let's draw where is the top and where is the bottom. Those are again orthogonal lines, matching corner to corner. All right, so again now, we don't need this little segment. Let's erase that. Let's say that we want to have also some recessed windows. Let's start one right here, easy. So start the same process as we did for our door, everybody. So let's go ahead and let's make some orthogonal line, 1 and 2, top and bottom. Then use our T-square and let's go ahead and make some vertical lines, 1 and 2. Now, what we need to do is we need to show depth. How far in does it go? So let's follow the same procedure that we did for these other two. So now for a recessed window, what I'm going to do is just draw it in a little bit, not too much, because it shouldn't come in as much as an opening like that in my mind. And now we're going to draw a vertical line up. So we always want to make this box first, very important for any recessed windows. And now we want to go ahead and we want to match up the corners to the vanishing point. So here we can see, now we've got a recessed 3D window. Now, if there was a glass pane in there real quick, here's what you would do. You want to go ahead and just make a line that goes right down the middle of the orthogonal parts as well. Just connecting them all. Let's do that 2 more times. We're gonna do that right here and right here. So I'm gonna make 2 windows right here on the same exact level. Here's my trick for that. You wanna go ahead and create one long orthogonal line for this. And remember that you want to go ahead and do the same thing for the bottom. This way you don't have 2 totally different windows that are totally out of whack and don't line up with each other. So right here, we're going to create 4 vertical lines to create the sense that there are 2 different windows here. Now, key thing to notice here is that I made this window a little bit bigger than this one. Why? Because objects closer to you are going to appear bigger than the ones further away from you. So if I kept this going, they would get smaller, smaller, smaller. So now we're going to erase these 6 lines right here because we don't need them. Now, one quick hack that you want to do whenever you have consistent windows is you want to show how far down they both get. So here we're going to have a nice big orthogonal line. We're going to draw this very lightly because we're going to need to erase some parts of it right there and there. Now we're going to do the horizontal lines from the corner over, corner over. All right, and now from that corner, we're going to pull straight down. All right, so now you're gonna see this little bit right here, and we can just go ahead, we can erase all of that goodness. And again, if we wanna show a window pane in there, again, we would go vertical and then orthogonal. So let's do that. Now for the third type of structure you're gonna have on this is gonna be additions. So this is where we're gonna have 3D objects coming up and off each of these surfaces, and we're gonna be focusing on the left side here now. So to start this one off, let's go ahead and right here, really close to the edge of your paper, go ahead and let's make a nice tall rectangle. This one is gonna be kind of an opening. You'd see this on like a hotel, just to give you a little bit of a backstory on it. So make sure that you go ahead and you start this right at the orthogonal line that constitutes the bottom of the building, please. So go ahead and make that a rectangle. All right, so now that we have this rectangle figured out, and again, make sure that this is coming off of the building, not up in here, because otherwise it looks like it's floating. So we want to go ahead and now we want to remember that all objects in 1 point perspective always start with this, a rectangle, friends. So anything that comes off that gets added on, we do this first, and then we're going to make orthogonal lines. Let's do that. Again, now we have to end the shape. How do we do that? We take a look at, what's the beginning of the shape? On this rectangle, it's a vertical line. So right here between these 2 orthogonals needs to be a vertical line. All right, so now we can see this little edge that's happening right here inside of that nice 3D rectangle I just added on. Go ahead and erase that. And boom, now this is gonna be a doorway, but there's a few other things I wanna add on first, so please join me in doing that. Right above that, let's go ahead and let's make a little awning. So to start this off, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna create another rectangle. Now again, every single time that you're gonna create an add-on, all you wanna think about is, what is the shape of the face that's facing me? So in all of these instances, as we go through this whole side here, it's gonna be some type of a rectangle. That's generally what it is. Now that we have that, boom, what are we gonna do? We have to go ahead, we have to match up our 3 points right here to our vanishing point to create the orthogonal lines. So now you notice how long I brought out these orthogonal lines? Well, that's because when you take a look at this side, it's going to be going in before the door starts. So logically, this orthogonal line down here has to be after the door stops. So now we have to end it. So again, what do? We take a look at, okay, here's the bottom of it. It's straight, horizontal. So this needs to be horizontal, and this needs to be a vertical right here. So let's start with the horizontal first. So while I was doing this, I kind of realized I didn't pull my orthogonal lines out enough just to make sure that it was going to start at the end of where the door frame was going to be, right below it. So if you need to go ahead and stretch out your orthogonal lines to make that fit, that's fine. Also, while you're doing this, if it eclipses the building behind it, that is perfectly normal and natural, so let that happen. All right, so here we can see how this starts. Again, right here, this is where it starts, and it goes out right up over to here, and it joins to this. This is what you definitely want to do, friends. So make sure that yours looks something like that. And now let's move on. Now we can do this to doors. We can do it to awnings and coverings. We can also do it to windows, because many windows are going to have some type of molding on it. So let's apply this technique there. Let's start out by making a rectangle right here. So this is going to be right here, a window with some molding. And again, we're going to start right here because this is the side that faces us, and thus what we're going to see directly when we're looking at it from the side, because it is a 3D object. So now we're going to create a stretch of them where we're going to have 2 in a row. So just like we did on the right hand side, we want to do that over here to make sure they align. Let's make 3 orthogonal lines that go to each one of these corners. All right, so even though these are going to be 2 separate windows, we're going to block this in as just one giant piece. So we're going to go straight down and then horizontally across. All right, so now let's cut this. Now remember that a window closer to us is going to be much bigger than a window further away from us. So let's make a couple horizontal lines. All right, so here we can see all of this nice stuff right here. So we want to now go ahead and treat these as 2 separate 3D shapes that are added on. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at 1, 2, and 3 points right here, and we're gonna just do some nice horizontal lines back. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the bottoms first, and then that'll help inform me what I need to do at the top here. All right, so now that I've done these 2 right here, we can go ahead and we can erase this segment right here, as well as this segment right here. Okay, now we're almost done. All we need to do now is, just like we see the side of this, because this is the face on this window facing us, we're gonna do the same thing right there too. So all we're gonna do is just go ahead and make a vertical line up and a horizontal line across. All right, so far, what do we have here? It looks like we have 2 canvases outside of a building, and we also just have this big generic brick wall in front of another wall. Now let's go ahead and let's show how far they recess in, because any window is always going to have a recess inside of it that shows the depth on it. Starting off with our windows right here, what we're gonna do is, just like we did it before, we're gonna go ahead and create a couple orthogonal lines right here on the tops, and we're gonna do the same thing right here on the bottom. Remember to keep your line weight really, really, really light. And then let's go ahead and do the same thing for right here. Another orthogonal line. All right, so now all we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create some vertical lines here, and that will show where the recess is going to be. So now while I'm showing you this is again just to make sure that you don't have a dumb and flat looking surface like I see so many people learn how to do and never evolve it. I want you to be able to understand how to create real depth in a space. All right, so now, just like we did up on the right side, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna show how far back that they go. And again, we're gonna start with the left edges on that. Why? Because we're on the left side of the axes. Then let's go ahead and create a nice vertical line up for the doorway. And then finally, let's create an orthogonal line right at this corner, matching to our vanishing point. Let's go ahead and erase this line right up in front there. There we go. Now we got a nice little area for a doorway. And hey, why don't we actually put a door in there too? So let's create a nice little orthogonal line right at the top. Now this is going to get cut off a little bit just because we're not going to see it 100%. And then let's go ahead and let's do a straight line down too, okay? And then a nice little vertical somewhere right around here. This now constitutes somewhat of a doorway. So what we're gonna do to show this one, because it's a double set of windows, is we wanna create the orthogonal line first, and then we'll create the rectangle like we did on the other side. Now again, because this is above the horizon line and to the left of the axes, we're gonna see the top, and we're gonna see the inside right corner of those window frames. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create some horizontal lines from each of the corners over to that orthogonal line, and then a vertical line straight down. All right, there we go. So now we've got this little extra piece right up in there. If you've got something like that too, go ahead and erase that. Looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and let's do some similar things right here. So I'm gonna do the same thing as I did before. I'm gonna go ahead and create a nice little doorway add-on opening right here, but then we're also gonna go ahead and create a space for a little sign right there. Let's do it. So now while you're doing the door frame back there, or when you're doing any type of add-on, just want you to remember this: everything starts with a rectangle. Always make everything just a 3D rectangle in 1-point perspective, because that is the foundation of everything. Once you make that rectangle, then you can recess it, you can add on more to it, you can recess it and add on to it on the inside too. Lots of possibilities exist there, but it all starts with that rectangle. Voiceover for the sign. Again, when we do the sign, you look at the side of a sign, it's just gonna be a rectangle, and you're gonna go ahead and start off with that just totally out of perspective, just straight horizontal verticals, and then you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna match it up to the vanishing point, and you're gonna end it the same way it starts. Again, just follow the orthogonals if you get lost or confused on where it is supposed to be. All right, so we're looking pretty good here. Let's say real quick, I wanna go ahead, I wanna create some type of a text right here, because this is gonna be a sign for this building. Easy, all you wanna do is remember that all text is also gonna be in perspective. So let's go ahead and create some really light guidelines that we can erase later on. Just one at the top and one at the bottom within the confines of that sign. There we go. And then we go ahead and we can write some stuff in here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cheat this. I should be using some type of a ruler, and any type of diagonal line would also be an orthogonal line like the A and the R. However though, I'm just gonna go ahead and write this one in. Sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't, but 100% of the time it does need to be in perspective like this. Now, let's make these buildings look a little bit higher. Let's pretend that these are actually bumped out and the rest of the building goes up from there. So we're gonna do that in a few places, so follow along with me. So let's go ahead and let's make a nice tall vertical right here to imply that this building goes up super tall. And let's do the same thing right here, but not all the way. Now here I wanna show how and where the top of this ledge is, so we'll make that an orthogonal line right there. So now I'm gonna do it on my mark too, and I'm gonna always start with, hey, where's the corner of it? So as any corner that you can find, but especially if you can see both of them, start with the one closest to you. This tends to be the easiest way in my opinion. So start with that, and then we're just gonna do a horizontal line back, and then an orthogonal line down, and end it. All right, we're starting to get somewhere, starting to look like something, right? Great. Now, let's go ahead and let's also add a roof. Let's add a roof onto this. So to start off a roof, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create a couple orthogonal lines. Let's say right here, make sure that this comes out a little bit further than where the edge of your building is. And then we're also gonna show how tall it is. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and create one. This is not gonna be too big of a gable, but we're gonna go ahead and do, say something like that. Again, it should be a nice light line so that you can erase it later. And now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start by ending the shape, and we're gonna start right here on the building. Now it's important to see this, where I'm gonna draw this horizontal line, it's gonna actually start a little bit under where the building ends. So again, the edge of the building is right here, and this is the original top of it. So it's gonna go a little bit and start a little bit ways down from there. That's important, and I'll show you why later. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and make a nice light vertical line up, make this into another vertical right here, okay? And then we're just gonna do a couple horizontal lines here, again, keeping all these lines incredibly light. All right, so thus far, not too incredible. But let's say that we want to make that a gable. That would be, again, a triangular roof. So here's the best way to do this that I get asked how to do a lot of times. So what we want to do is let's figure out where the point is going to be in a triangular roof. Now you would logically think that it's going to be like dead in the middle of this, right? But however, no. What's going to happen in perspective is going to shift towards the edge closest to us. So since we're on the right side of the axis, it's going to be a little bit more to the right. If it's on the left, it would be on the left side. So what we're going to do here is let's go ahead and select this, say right about there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make a couple of actual diagonal lines using a regular ruler. And we're gonna match those up to the original corners of that box that we drew. All right, so now check it out. We actually don't need this at all, any part right here outside of that triangle that's up top from it, because we only did this just to get that. So erase those. All right, last step now, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna draw a straight horizontal line back to show how far back it goes. If your peak is a little bit higher than mine, that's fine. So you'll notice for me that this was very slight. For you, it might be a little bit bigger, and that's a-okay too. Now, let's do more of a squared roof right here, just because it is a commercial building and that's typically what they have. All right, so now that we've got those all situated here, we've only got a couple more things to do. First off, if this is an actual city space, then probably a sidewalk would be nice, right? So let's go ahead, let's make some orthogonal lines going towards our vanishing point, so they're gonna bump out from our buildings where they start just a little bit like that. There we go. So now make sure that this comes up a little bit above where your buildings are ending, by the way, friends. Now, another quick thing that you want to do here is we want to show, hey, where does this end? Let's imagine that this is kind of a three-way intersection here. So let's go ahead and let's make a horizontal line from here over and here over. They should be the same. All right, there we go. Now it's starting to look like a street, right? But what's wrong here? Look, a sidewalk is a 3D shape, y'all. So what do we have to do? We have to go down and make an orthogonal line, and down, make an orthogonal line. One thing that I would do here is I would make sure that you use your T-square and just give yourself a little guide for how far down it's gonna come. Say right here, make a little dot. And then you're gonna do vertical line down, orthogonal, vertical line, orthogonal. There we go, check that out. Now we've got a nice little corner. Now lastly, what I would do is I would just go ahead and let's draw a few lines back here to show where's the other side of the street. Now just to be clear, this would be the top of the other street, and now I'm gonna do a very thin one below that, and that's gonna denote where the depth on it is. Because it's so far away, it's gotta be thinner than this. And again, you wanna remember, everything in perspective needs depth, y'all. Okay, now let's do one last thing that might be on a city road right here, and I'm talking about some manhole covers. So here's how we're gonna do circular objects. So what we wanna do is create a couple orthogonal lines first to just put them into some kind of a fixed position and a fixed shape. So let's go ahead and do that. And now let's say I want to put one here and right here. Don't just draw a circle, because first off, a circle is never going to be a circle in perspective. It's always going to be an oval. So what we're going to do now is make a couple of horizontal lines. This one further away from us is going to be a pretty small rectangle. And then the one closer to us is going to be a little bit bigger. Let's say right about here and right about that size. Okay. So now what we want to do with anything circular in perspective is always start out like a rectangle. And then what we can think about now is that each one of these points, I'm just going to drop some little dots right here to help me out with this. And I recommend you do the same. These are going to serve for our circular objects. So what we want to do is now we want to create an oval that's going to hit every single one of those midpoints within that shape. And this takes a little bit of control and a little bit of finesse to get this going. So feel free to sketch this out nice and light. So at this point, let's go ahead and let's erase all these extra lines so they're just 3D ovals. All right, so last step on this is that we need to show how far down they go because we need to show depth and they're 3D objects. So using our T-square, let's go ahead and let's draw some lines right down at the outermost edge. These are not gonna be terribly thick objects, everybody, so don't make them too high. Otherwise, you know, they're gonna take out cars when people drive over them. All right, now we're gonna recreate this curve right there, starting from that point. All right, there we go. Now we got one last thing that I recommend you do, and I would really recommend that you put something right here. I can't tell you how many times it looks really strange when there's just an infinity street that goes back to nothing, and or it just fades into oblivion in the void. Now this gives me a really good opportunity for you to talk about what happens with something that is in the back or you would put here or here. And I say that because anything that I would put on any of these flat surfaces, they would initially start out with no orthogonal lines, just like these doors. But if you notice when I did this little awning right here, I started out with that rectangular shape, and yes, it is beholden to the vanishing point. So just kind of bear that in mind as you're gonna go through this, okay? And I hope that this gave you all the information you need to at least start your 1-point perspective journey. And I'm gonna do a few more things right now just to soup this up and make it look even better, and I invite you to join me too. All right, so this is gonna be all the basics that you need to do and you need to know. So basically, again, every single surface either needs to be raised, recessed, or it's added onto. So all you need to do is just think about which one of those 3 scenarios is gonna give you the precise type of structure that you need, and then you can, of course, embellish upon there. And also you wanna think about, is this gonna be a rectangular-ish shape, or is it also going to be some type of a circular shape? Because now you know how to do that too. And if you needed to combine 2 or 3 of these techniques together, you can totally do that. And that's the purpose of this tutorial. It's not to show you how to create this super intricate thing, but just to show you realistically how does depth work in 1-point perspective for any type of application, so that you can create the awesome artworks that you've got locked in your brain and the designs that are going to be super cool and people are going to love.